John, thanks for coming to hang out with me today, my friend.
Hey, Donnie, thank you so much. Glad we get to spend some time together today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, where you? I know you're in Northern Virginia, but I want you to share with everybody else that you're in Northern Virginia. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're located and what's going on in your life right now.
Yeah, so live in Northern Virginia, a little town called Vienna, about 13 miles outside of Washington, D.C. Born and raised in New Jersey, grew up in a small little shore town called Point Pleasant Beach, so about 60 miles north of Atlantic City, which was a great place to grow up, especially in the summer. And found my way to DC in 2010 for both personal and professional reasons, and have been loving having being down here for the last 10 years.
Nice, yeah, clear across the country from me. I'm over here in California, and but it's crazy what we're going through as a nation right now. I know that you've got the same things going on in your
Yeah,
area as I do in mine, and across the country. And it's just some crazy times out there.
it is, and it's as one of my networking friends has said to me. He's like, if you everybody put their strategic plan for 2020 in the trash. So anything we kind of thought was going to happen just hasn't, and we're just
Yep,
rolling along to see what's next.
absolutely. Yeah, it's been a interesting last few months to say the least, and hopefully as a nation we can come together and get through this and carry that. And I know that's a lot of what we want to eventually get to in this topic of conversation of how we can
Yeah,
help
no,
and pull people
absolutely.
forward and really focus on our mindset when there's so much that's negative out there right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, I know right now you're a career coach, and how did you get to this point though? Because I know it didn't start there.
No, no, it did not. So Donnie, I have a 25-year career in education. I was a middle school mathematics teacher, managed a mathematics department for 14 years. I was at the same school district in northern New Jersey. Interestingly enough, next to the Real Housewives of New Jersey, which that's a whole different podcast at some point if you want to talk about. But I was just feeling professionally pulled. I was personally pulled in some ways too, because my now husband and I, we were doing a long distance relationship for 2 years. And so
Mhm.
that's what kind of brought me to DC. But I told him I wouldn't come here without a job. So I had a job. I got a job working for the District of Columbia Public Schools, managing an instructional coaching program where I supervised 21 instructional coaches over 13 middle schools. And it was a great job, and I loved it. And there were days when I came home and I was beaming from ear to ear over what I had saw, and other days I
Mhm.
came home in tears. And it was a great opportunity. It was such a level up from what I had been doing, because it allowed me to take the instructional coaching skills I had been using and just move them forward exponentially, and love that. And then made a jump to work for the state superintendent in DC, and then ultimately ended up at an educational nonprofit working in assessments. So the educational nonprofit I worked for, we partnered with state departments of education across the country and wrote those large scale summative assessment tests that some people say make kids cry. And so so I came over there to write math items. I was going to be a complete math nerd and geek and write math items and everything. And I was on the job for 3 months. My boss walks into my office and she closes my door, and I go, great, I'm getting fired. Like first thing came, like mindset, right? First thing came, I go, I'm getting canned. And she sits there and we get talking, and first thing she says is, you're doing really good work and you're coming along. I'm like, okay, that's good. And she says, you're really good with the team. I said, oh, thanks. She's like, everybody knows you. And I go, well, yeah, it's important that I get to know everybody we've got on the team, especially being 3 months in. I should know everybody. She said, John, I'm not talking about the 25 people on our team. I'm talking about the 85 people that work on this floor. She goes, everybody knows you. How the heck did you do it? And I laughed, and I was like, all right, you caught me. I go, I can't sit in this office really long. So I get up and I walk around the hallway as I'm going to the bathroom or the coffee machine. And I just kind of memorize people's name cards and faces outside their office. And then when I see them at the coffee machine, I introduce myself, because it's a lot less awkward than doing it in the bathroom. And, she laughed, kind of a thing, right? She laughed, and she said, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but I'm not really good with the team. And I went, oh, I have. And she's like, no, wait a minute. And I go, you walked into my office and closed my door. How do I help you?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, Donnie, it was building this relationship with her where, as a leader, she was overwhelmed. She was at the beck and call of the president of the company, and understandably so. But she had enough insight to realize she wasn't taking care of the team the way that she needed to. And at that point, she said to me, "This is why I hired you."
That's
And
awesome.
so,
So you
yeah,
were able to, so you had your leader come to you asking you for advice on how they could lead better, essentially.
right. And so what we ended up doing was we did a little bit of a role shift. She had me move into a position where I was basically handling a lot of the day-to-day operations of the team. But what I also found out was I was doing a lot of coaching. I was doing a lot of coaching with people on the team who were frustrated. They were unhappy. They were wanting to advance and move within the organization and not necessarily sure how to do it. And then after a couple of reorgs, I had moved into some different roles. And ultimately, I ended up as a training and staffing director for the entire division. And, you know, reorganizations happen, and sometimes you don't always land where you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my role, I was basically handling a lot of the onboarding for all of our new hires. And it was great work, and I loved what I was doing, but I wanted to do more coaching.
Right.
And so after having a conversation with my VP, who had confirmed that I was basically stuck on an island with nowhere to go, and she confirmed everything for me about, look, you're not going to get a raise, you're not going to get a promotion, you're not going to get a bonus, you're not at risk of getting fired, but you're just kind of there right now. And they don't fully understand the value that you're bringing. That really gave me the final push that I needed, which was to make the decision to leave that organization. And very gratefully, by the way, for 5 years where I learned a tremendous amount, but to open up my career coaching practice full time, because I had an opportunity to serve more people outside than I could in.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know taking that leap to entrepreneurship is a whole different, set of challenges, we'll call it. What was that like going from, being in that type of a position in that role to now, everything's on John?
Yeah, right. I mean, as teachers, and for those people who are listening that maybe have a background in government work in any way, shape, or form, you're beholden to the guide, right? So I knew when I started my teaching job, I had a master's and I was at step 1, and I was paid $35,000 back in 1996. And I knew that every year after that, I moved on the guide, I knew what my salary was going to be. And so you get very comfortable in knowing that there's no negotiations, there's no playing around in that regard. You just do your work, do it well, you get your step increment, and that's what you get paid. And so there's security in that. When I went to the nonprofit, we didn't have a guide, so it was learning how to negotiate and all those kind of things. But going out on your own and being like, I'm not going to take a stable paycheck anymore, and I know that every month I'm going to have to do what I need to do in order to meet my goals and hustle and, make the relationships that I need to make and everything in order for me to get paid for what I do. That was a huge a huge mindset shift, just in terms of being able to make that happen and let go of that financial security in the sense of that regular paycheck coming in every other week.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously, a big leap anytime you're going out. That's amazing. That story of you being able to kind of be recognized within your company for the value that you're bringing to the table. And it is awesome to hear like a boss being able to, put herself aside and realize that and go to somebody who's technically, underneath her and ask for help. But then how that's catapulted your value and how you probably made you feel even better about yourself when she recognized that,
Without question, right? I have been blessed to work with some truly amazing leaders across a variety of different organizations. And it's not to say that I haven't worked with some people whom I haven't gelled with or haven't necessarily aligned with, but the leaders with whom I've had a chance to work with, I'm very, very grateful for. Yeah. Absolutely.
So how is, now that you've got how long have you had the career coaching business now?
So full-time, I'm in my third year.
Okay, cool. And how's that going? I mean, who's your typical client?
Typical client, mid-career professional, somebody who is feeling worried about being stuck. They know they're valuable. They're not sure how to step out to make that next move. They're overwhelmed by everything that they've got going on between work and home, and they're like, I'm not really happy, but I'm tired. I don't necessarily know if I've got the energy to really invest in making the move. So imploring the help of somebody like me is able to not only help hold them accountable, but to really take the overwhelm from the whole entire process of whatever leadership or career transition they want to make, and systematically guide them through it step by step, so they can be far better after they've prepared, positioned, and promoted who they are and what they do to make whatever change comes next.
That's excellent. So is it a very hands-on type of a coaching experience?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. I think one of the things that I really focus on, when I hire coaches, and me being a coach, is there's so much information in the world now. There's not a shortage of that. Where most people, struggle and have the challenges in the actual implementation and having action-based coaching programs where you're held accountable and there's work to be done, and it's actually empowering the person rather than, hey, here's 15 videos, go watch them and figure it out. It's just such a game changer.
Absolutely. And it's why working with somebody one-on-one, it becomes very much like a VIP boutique type experience, where you truly get to build that relationship with them. And it's one of the rare times where somebody gets to invest in themselves and shut everything else out to only focus on their goals and what they want to do, that we don't always get a whole lot in our lives either.
Right. Well, it's going on that thing of personal development. For me, like, personal development is like something I crave. I'm always working with a coach myself. I'm always going through different programs, trying to improve. But there's other, people that aren't really kind of there yet from a personal development, where they're not, it's not that they're against it, but they just, sometimes there's a fear about jumping in. I mean, what kind of advice would you have for somebody that's thinking about taking a leap into some personal development?
So do your research.
Yep.
Right. I mean, if we were to go out and buy a new car, we would have probably an idea of what we would want to buy, but we're still going to go and take a look and look at different dealerships, because, we may want to go buy a Honda or a Lexus or whatever it is, but there's a lot of different dealerships out there. There are different service departments, all those kind of things. I think it's Victor Antonio who says there's 3 F's, which is fit, function, and finance. When you do your research, you really have to explore how well you fit with the coach, right? If this is somebody who you're really willing to show up with every other week or every week, whatever the sessions are, to sit down and do the hard work that you're expecting to be done to move you forward, and the function is all around the program and the coaching services that are being offered to get the result you want, and then whether or not it fits into your budget or not. And to really explore those kind of things. I had somebody the other day, we had 3 conversations. We talked before the show, right, about building relationships with people and everything, and how it kind of gradually moves into, hey, what do you offer kind of thing. And she called me up and she was so honest, which was just so appreciated. And she said to me, all right, here's the deal. I'm making a decision between you and this other woman. And I went, wait a minute, hold on, right? Like, I'm a guy, hold on, right? And she was like, John, you know what I meant. And she's like, I don't know how to make this decision. And so I said, do you want some coaching around this, right? Because we know when we get permission, we can go ahead and coach. And I coached her really hard on that fit, function, and finance. And she wrote me this email yesterday, which I keep. Like, I keep certain things. We all that, like, keeper's file, right? And she said, I went with the other person because I felt it was a better fit. But it was nothing about what you offered. It was nothing about your price point. I would have loved to hire you both, but it's not feasible at this point. But thank you for helping me make the decision.
Yep.
And I was like, great. you and I are still connected, right? You're not my client now, but you and I are still connected. And I think for people who are really looking to explore, that's the work you've got to do. You've got to figure out if that's the coach you want to work with for however long it is, and their program and the price point is all in line with what you want.
Yeah, that's phenomenal advice. I like that. Fit, function, and finance. That's a good way to put it. And I think that's, it covers all the bases, because that's really what it should be. Is
it's easy to remember.
Yeah. Well, and even though, like, people that are listening may think, oh, well, that's a bummer that he missed out. But really, when you're coming from a place of service, you serve that woman in the highest manner by saying, hey, here's how you can make the decision. She makes the decision. The decision happens not to be you, but you can still accept that gracefully, because, you probably have a mindset of abundance. There's plenty of clients out there for you. And for her, now she's going to go somebody that is really, truly a good fit for her.
Right. I mean, the worst place, I think, as a coach, when we're meeting with people to come from, is from a place of neediness.
Yep.
Right. I mean, there's nothing to me. It's pretty bad when it's such a turnoff. It's like when we're dating, right? We're trying to find that person who we want to spend the rest of our lives with, and everything. You go up to that person and you're like, I have to get married tomorrow. Will you go out with me? And you're like, ew, no, go away.
Yeah.
So I think, and especially whether you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, career professional, whatever it is, needy energy is just a huge turnoff, and it's not going to get us the results we want.
Well, let's talk about that, because I know we talked about going into this about talking about the victim kind of needy energy versus, the victor type of an energy and mindset. What do you think are some of the things that you see where people commonly fall into a trap of kind of victimhood, so to speak?
Yeah. So in my work, particularly with the clients whom I serve, where the victim energy comes up, right? Or the victim mindset comes up, right? So a victim is a person who's been harmed, injured, killed, anything like that because of a crime or an accident. But the victim mindset is where they've been impacted by something that they then develop this personality trait that carries over into other areas of their lives, right? So for example, a client who has been desperately wanting to move to, say, a director's position within the company, and they are repeatedly turned down for that opportunity. It could be very easy for them to adopt a victim mentality by saying, in this organization, I can never get ahead, right? Or you work with a boss, or you work with a leader, and every conversation you go into, you believe that you are never going to make them happy. They're never going to like what you have to say. And you absolutely dread and loathe every single interaction you have with him or her.
Right.
Right. So in that can become not only toxic, but it can become very deflating as well. Right. For me, I know that when I kept getting turned down for opportunities, I needed to have a conversation with my boss to get the answer I needed to move forward. And in having that intentional conversation with her, where I went into her office and I said, I want to have a conversation with you today about my career path, and I trust you enough you're going to give me an honest answer. Can I ask you? She's like, yeah, go ahead. Right. And I said, I'm trying to figure out what my path is here, and at best I see it is horizontal. And while I am at not a risk of getting fired today, and I know I'm valuable in some respects, I'm never going to get promoted. I'm never going to get a bonus. I'm never going to see a raise, because I basically feel like I'm stuck on an island. How accurate am I? And Donnie, when I had that conversation, it was about me taking control back over my career and where I was at. And she looked at me, she threw her hands up in the air, and she goes, it's not that I haven't tried, they just don't get you. And at that point, I knew I could either stay in the lane I was in until they let me go, or I could take control and shift the mindset and get out and do something that I really wanted to do.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, because it's, you're taking 100% responsibility of your own situation. And even though you don't have full control of these cards that are being dealt in that job, but you're still handling everything that you can. And I think that's, such a critical part, when we fall into that trap sometimes of becoming that victim to then transferring into more of an empowered, mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the we talked about this in leading up to today, but there's an assessment tool that I use with my clients called the Energy Leadership Index.
Yep.
And if anybody's watching live or they're listening to this afterwards, you can just search Energy Leadership Index, or you can Google Energetic Self-Perception Chart. It comes from IPEC, which is the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, where I got certified. It was developed by Bruce D. Schneider, who founded IPEC. But what I love about the ELI, first and foremost, is that it's an attitudinal assessment. So when we talk about victim versus victor, and we think about the attitudes that shape our mindset around that, there are 7 different levels of energy in the Energy Leadership Index. And the easiest way to describe it at a 30,000-foot level is to think about it in terms of winning.
Right.
We've all played sports, right? And so at level 1, the quote unquote victim level here at level 1, it is the belief that I never win. Mm-hmm. Whatever situation I go to, I never win.
Right.
And at level 2, it's the fighter energy, which is I win and you lose. And at level 3, it is what we call rationalizer energy, which is I win, but if you win, it's okay. I see that a lot with my clients when they're interviewing for a position and they find out they lost the promotion or the job because somebody else was more qualified than they are. Doesn't mean they didn't want the job as much.
Right.
Right. But they just didn't have the same background.
Right.
Level 4 is the caregiver energy. You always win. I see this a lot with heart-centered managers, educators, healthcare workers, service-oriented professionals demonstrate a lot of level 4 energy because they're always giving, and giving, and they need to learn ways to replenish their tank.
Right.
And then the upper levels of energy are about opportunity. We all win or we don't play. It's about knowing that in whatever situation we get into, we always win. And then at the highest level of energy, it's really understanding that winning and losing are just things that we make up. We make up the rules and the parameters around what winning and losing looks like. Yeah. And I say that, and I don't want to misconstrue that with, if you and I were going to play a game and we're keeping score, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. Mm-hmm. Right? This isn't 2 + 2 is 5 and I feel really good about myself. It's nothing like that at all, but it's a mindset shift around we get to really determine what winning and losing looks like for us in given situations because of the mindset we have.
Yeah, I love that because that's really forcing you to creating the win of just being in the experience rather than what the outcome of that experience is. And I think from a mindset, if you can always come from that, then you're always, the win is in the experience. You can almost, and like you said, it's not that, competitively, you're not going to go push hard. If you're going for another job or career that you're not going to go all in on it, like you're saying. But, realizing that really the win, and that's such a big, important thing, I think. A lot of things I talk to my clients about when they're, we focus more on lead generation and creating content. And so a lot of times there's this block of, well, who's going to listen to me anyways? I don't have anything valuable to create. And what I tell them is like, look, the win is just to show up. Show up, create the value, create the video, you'll get better during the process. But the win, half the time, is just being a part of that experience. I love those 7 little steps you broke down there.
Yeah, and what I love about what you just said, to just pause on that for a minute, when we are really clear about our voice and our message, it will resonate with someone. Mm-hmm. Somebody out there is looking for exactly what you, me, anybody out there who's listening right now has to say at this given moment, and it will touch them and it will make them think and reflect and ultimately move to take action. Look, I'm never going to have as many followers as Kim Kardashian has, nor do I care to.
Oh, give yourself some credit, man. Give yourself some credit.
Yeah, right. Right. But if I have one less than her, it's okay, right? Yeah. But that's the thing. somebody out there will resonate and connect. And I, as I follow people on social, especially whether it's Facebook or Instagram, and I see them go live, and if they have one person that's live, right, and it's me, they are talking to me like they are talking to 10,000 people. Yep. They are spreading that message and that energy that's out there because they are showing up energetically and powerfully to make the impact they want. And they are not sitting there going, oh, I only got one person on my live today. They're not adopting that kind of, victim mentality that nobody's listening to me. They're really digging into, here's my message. It's going to resonate with somebody.
Absolutely. And I think that's, 100%, especially when it comes into, marketing specifically, is like, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like it's, like we keep talking about, it's really just, if you're showing up, that's the first step, because it's easy to be caught into, I always call it the dopamine. Like, hey, I'm going to value myself based off the likes, the comments, the how many people showed up to my live interview, rather than just coming from a place of service. And I'm committed to being here. If nobody else is here, then I'm okay with that. If 25 people are here, then it's not the ideal, right? Or that's the ideal, but so I think that's huge. What other tips do you have from once we identify this kind of victim mentality to shifting into more of a victor and really focusing on, maximizing our
right. So you hit the nail on the head, right? It's like, what do I get to learn and what's the opportunity? Right. So days before COVID, when we would sit there and we would go to these networking lunches and happy hours and all those kind of things, I have talked to so many clients who have been scared to death about going to a networking event because they either don't know what to say, they don't know how to navigate the room or anything. And this one client in particular I was working with, and this was a big stretch for him to go to a networking event, right? And I said to him, what would make you going to this networking event really successful for you? And he said, well, if I met someone who would be a good connection for me. And I go, great, what's a good connection look like? And we started getting clear about who in his professional arena would be a really good person to connect with. And we started talking about how would you build that relationship, right? So we went beyond the networking event to a follow-up phone call or a follow-up coffee or something like that. And we got done with all that. And I said to him, so great, when you go to this event and you've made that one connection, do you leave? And he goes, I could. And I go, great, goal obtained. Yeah. You make one connection, you get in and get out. You don't have to stay, you don't have to close the place down. Right? You got what you came for. And we talked about where he could add value and service to somebody else in that regard too. And it was all about the opportunity and what could he learn. And what we found and what he was able to discover is that if he did it once and he got a valuable connection, the next time he went wasn't as bad.
Right.
Right.
Well, the next time it might be two.
It might be two, right? And he even said to me, he's like, do I bring someone with a networking event? And I go, you bring someone with an understanding that you're going to go to two opposite sides of the room.
Right.
Right. Let them do their own networking. I go, because if somebody sees you talking to someone, they're not going to be as inclined to come up to you. He's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Really good advice. Going on to, just kind of like tagging on to that, I think one of the things I really love that you're saying there is the power of choice ultimately, right? Yeah. And it goes back into this thing we were talking about before of like, really, you get to choose what that win looks like for you. And where, if you were to get into the comparing game, which I know we always do as people, as much as we say we don't, well, some people may look at it, well, I only met one connection tonight, but John met 5. And just staying in your own lane and finding out what your wins are and being okay with that and identifying those things. But I think one of the big things that I like is that choice part of it, right? And I had a coach kind of give me this analogy, chocolate or vanilla, John? Ice cream, which one, chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Why?
Because I like the taste better.
Okay. Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Why?
Um, because it's also what's comfortable, and I know I really like it.
All right. Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Why?
Because it makes me feel good when I eat a bowl of vanilla ice cream that I probably shouldn't be doing much lately because of COVID. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, well, COVID, yeah, that's a whole other story. But at the end of the day, really, John, it's vanilla. Why? Because I choose it.
Yeah.
We're so programmed in our society now to have to
Right.
justify what my choice is,
Yeah.
what my wins are. Chocolate or vanilla? Vanilla. Why? Because I choose it, right? I'm going to go to the networking event. My win is one. Why? Because that's what I've defined my win as.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think there's so much power when we can really come from a place of that choice. I love what you're saying there. And you know, what do you think when you look at in your own personal journey when you kind of transform yourself from a victim to more of this victor type of mindset? I mean, what is the impact for you personally? Like, what have you seen for your own life?
Oh, the impact for me personally has been exponential. And just to kind of quick story in all of this, right? So, when I didn't come out to my family till I was 28. And I went through a whole battery of emotions around that and what that was supposed to look like. And
Mm-hmm.
I go into a lot of depth with it in the book, but just to kind of give you the high level here, I knew when I was going to come out to my family, it was going to break their heart. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't going to be happy with it. Staunch religious family.
Right.
And the choice, right, to your point, right, the choice was I could either live a life that I was unhappy with,
Right.
or I could live a life where I was standing in my truth with who I am and what I believed. And the journey in all of that was a cycle where, yep, blew up my family.
Mm-hmm.
I got disowned. My mom gets cancer and wants to see me before she goes in for a procedure. I hadn't talked to my parents in almost 2 years. And when I met her, she had said to me, "Are you still what you are?" I was like, "Yep." And she's like, "Are you still with him?" And I was like, "No, the relationship ended." And she was like, "Well, good." And I was like, you do not get to gloat over my personal pain or the breakup of my relationship. I love you. I am sorry you have to go through this. I will be here with you, but we will set some ground rules about what
Absolutely.
this
Yeah.
looks like. And the lessons that I learned, because let's face it, it could have been really easy for me to walk away from my family and be like, you don't love who I am and blah, 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 and all of that. They're my family.
Mm-hmm.
They're my blood, like they're my parents,
Right.
right? And so for all of us, it was about showing up in a way that was for us to get really uncomfortable with what was going on, but
Yep.
to come from a place of saying, let's try to figure this out. And the nice part is that the whole story comes full circle, right? I ended up having a really good relationship with both of my parents before they passed, right? Especially my mom, because she outlived my dad by almost 8 years. So you go through something like that, and I could have easily adopted a victim mentality through that.
Mm-hmm.
I chose not to. I chose to keep finding where was the opportunity. And it wasn't easy. I mean, we're talking 10 years at least before things even got somewhat quote unquote better. Um, in a way that my mom could actually now meet my now husband and
Right.
be like, I can see the two of you are going to be friends for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like that was the way she defined it. But you go through all of that and you find ways to find your voice. And that's what happened for me. And so when I got into the workplace, for me to have to find my voice and speak up for things, I had all this other history that was going on.
Right.
I was co-president of a union of over 160 people in my district. I successfully led negotiations with a team for over $25 million contracts on 2 separate occasions. I went toe-to-toe with the board and the attorney and the whole bit
Mm-hmm.
because I knew my voice.
Right.
And I knew how my voice could help serve my organization in those regards, right? And so the journeys that we all have are really nothing more than a totality of our experiences that bring us to this conversation right now. And I think about what is going on in our world right now, and my heart breaks. Words fail, right? As a white male, there are times when my words simply fail me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And yet what I have also found is that acknowledging the conversation that is out there has opened up broader conversations, whether it be within my circle of friends, my
Mm-hmm.
family, my close networking colleagues, or people who just call me up and are like, John, and I'm like, okay, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. Like we are all called in some way to find our voice, especially right now during this time.
I couldn't agree more. And first off, I mean, thank you for sharing that story. I mean, it's
Yeah,
incredibly
thank you.
inspiring, and uh, you know, there's just so much to that. I mean, so much to what you just laid out there. But talking about your relationship with your mom and the rebuild, for some people that you may look at that as like a man, that's a long time. But I mean, if we're forgetting about that relationship, what was the level of weight lifted off of your shoulders by just finally being like truthful? Okay, yeah, I know I need
Yeah,
to go rebuild this relationship, but man, you must have felt like a different person
right.
when you
So
just spit your truth.
yeah. So there's an event that had happened to me when I was 10 years old, and my sister, who had just graduated high school, got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
She came home and told my folks. Now this is 1979, so let's put that in that context there.
Right.
But again, staunch religious family, the whole bit. And after all the screaming and crying and the door slam and stuff like that, my mom sets me on her lap, and I'm 10, right? I'm 10. I don't really know the whole mechanics here, okay?
Yeah.
But she sits me on her lap and she goes, if you ever go to bed with a woman before you're married, I hope you see my face instead of hers. And I went, okay. And I went off up to my room to go play, right? I was like, okay, whatever. But as I started understanding what was going on with me,
Mm-hmm.
and I understood my orientation, and I understood the ground rules that they had put out there for me, I knew I was going to blow it up. I was going to blow it up.
Right.
It was almost like it was a no-win situation in this. So the day that I came out to them and told them, yeah, it was absolutely like the weight was lifted off my shoulder. And then it was just waiting for the nuclear bomb to fully detonate and go off.
What's going to happen next? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But at that point, at least, I was prepared to deal with it in whatever way came.
Right.
That was the piece of it, right? And while the situations may not equate, but they may relate, there are things in our lives that we have to do, that we say, where we feel this tremendous weight lifted off of our shoulders. And it's where we get to stand in the truth. I have been amazed at some of the stories that I have heard from leaders of companies and small businesses that had to lay off their staff because of COVID.
Right.
Right. And that is not their coming out story. That is one hell of a hard story to stand in front of your team and go, I have to furlough you, or I have to lay you off.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's all the things that come from it, right? Is my business going to survive? And the employee is like, where am I going to find work? Because I don't have enough money in the bank and I need to get work and everything. All of those things. I mean, we all have these defining moments where we have these intentional conversations and the weight gets lifted. I define an intentional conversation as you sitting down with one other person and you move the relationship forward. Whatever that is, it is about moving the relationship forward so the two of you, when you get up from your chairs, you get up from the table, wherever you're meeting, you are better for having that conversation than you were for not having it.
Right. Well, it's a straight collision sometimes that we're afraid of. Right. And those conversations are usually the ones that, like you said, it's what it's gonna take, whether you're talking about a relationship with your spouse, with a, friend, employee, coworker, whatever it is, it's being willing to collide and meet somebody and be honest
Right.
about what's going on.
Like, Donnie, I don't know of anybody who wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm going to tick people off today.
I don't know. My little 13-month-old daughter, she may do that, but yeah.
Right. But it's that, yeah, like we try to do no harm.
Right.
Right. And it's that kind of thing. Like I can't help but watch morning television and follow some of the drama that goes on with morning TV. But when Ann Curry left the Today Show, I don't know if you remember that moment or not. I mean, she was the newsreader and got moved into the role as co-anchor because that was the progression that it was like she was entitled to the role, or that was next in line. And if we don't get her, we're going to lose her. And they moved her into this role and she did not fit. She didn't fit. And when she was on air for the last day and all of the stuff that goes on with the other stories around that and everything, but she looks into the camera and she goes, I came into this role and I tried to do no harm. Right?
Right.
And that's the thing. I think when we show up fully, we are there from a place of service.
Mm-hmm.
We are not trying to do any harm. We are trying to move the needle forward, whether it be in our business, our company, our relationship, whatever that is. We're just trying to move the relationship forward. That's what we're called to do.
Yeah, it's 100%. I mean, there's just it's tough, to get to that point. It is tough to be able to have those difficult conversations, but that's, and I think from what my clients and what I do in my world is when you come from a place of service and you're creating content because, from a fear standpoint and going into victim versus victor and, hey, I can't do this. What if somebody doesn't agree with me? What's
right.
the backlash going to be? And I always go back to what you said is like, if you're coming from a place of service and somebody has something negative to say, then why would you want to work with that person anyways?
Right.
There's going to be plenty of people that don't see eye to eye, with you and what you have going on. Right. And just showing up, again, going back to the same kind of concept, like showing up is the win. Be there, be present, and serve your market. And there's going to be enough people that like you.
It's like when somebody unsubscribes from your email list or they unfollow you on social. And I know for me at the beginning, and I've talked about this with my coach colleagues and everything, you can't help but think at that moment and go, what'd I do wrong?
Right.
Right. But the mindset there is that just doesn't serve them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're getting fed somewhere else. And that's good. They made a decision what they need. And right now, if I can't feed them with the information they need, that doesn't mean they may not come back. But for right now, they're getting nourished somewhere else.
Right.
Or that as far as they're concerned, my plate's empty for them. And they're making the best decision for them.
100%.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this, John. This has been excellent.
Same here.
Going into, you made the comment kind of wrapping up with your story with your mom around, the unfortunate things that are happening in our country to specifically African-American folks that we've seen happen, through years and years and years. And I think that sometimes, and, it's tough to always go here as a white man, right? But I think these conversations are good. And the more we can have these, then the more our country can progress and move forward. But I think, going into this topic here, sometimes I think that us as white people, we feel when Black people are sharing their feelings about how they've been treated and what they're going through and things like that, we get resistant to it and we start to put ourselves into a victim mentality subconsciously because of an importance thing that we may have, right? And I think that there's an opportunity for us to stop and listen and realize that they're not taking anything from us getting equality, so to speak, right? And sometimes when people think of change, we think, oh, well, what happened? It's such a loaded topic of what do we do? And obviously you and I really aren't qualified to answer this question, right?
No.
But, I think from a mindset standpoint, I think it's important for us as white people to show up how we can and open our arms and say we're here to listen, you know.
Well, and I think the biggest thing is to acknowledge the conversation that needs to be had.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's one of the easiest steps in some way, is just to acknowledge the conversation that is happening both locally and nationally. And conversations need to be had within your own race about
Yep.
how we're dealing with it, right? As well as with other races and other genders and other orientations as well in this whole thing. And I will tell you, Donnie, like where I have personally struggled is I have seen posts that are out there that say, well, all lives matter. That is not what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
The Black Lives Matter movement is not that. It is about the victimizing that African-American Black people have had at the hands of law enforcement unfairly. That is the issue at hand. Yep. That is why there's rioting in the streets. That is why that's why there's protesting in the streets. But that is a foundation of our country, right? And so, yes, as a white guy, I don't have any idea what an African-American male has experienced because I haven't lived it.
Yep.
Right? But as one of my friends, and I just eloquently shared with me, he had said, I don't need your sympathy. I appreciate your empathy, but what I need is your action. And that just hits, and I reached out to him the other day. I was like, this still stuck with me. And he's like, good. Find ways to act. Find ways to have the conversation. Find ways to be a voice and champion the cause as best as you can in this time, because the conversation needs to move forward.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying of it's a collision.
Yeah.
There needs to be the collision. There needs to be the uncomfortable conversation in order for this type of a thing to move forward. You know, because it's not a blanket situation, right? There's lots of different things to it. There's lots of different opinions around it, and having the conversations rather than constant, you know, cycle of same result that's happening.
Yeah.
And nothing's moving forward and progressing in any angle of it. So,
and I appreciate what the governor of Minnesota said, whose name escapes me right now, but he was interviewed the other day, and he said, I don't think we necessarily get another chance to get this right. We've got to get this right now.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, excellent, John.
Hey.
I appreciate you being here, man. This is a really good conversation. Why don't you let the listeners know where they can you know, reach out to you? How can they get connected with you?
Yeah, no, Donnie, thank you for having me as a guest. And I know you and I have been liking and commenting on each other's posts for a while, so it's been great to connect with you these last couple of weeks. Easiest way for people to get a hold of me, you got my website at johnneral.com, which is JOHNNERAL. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me at Facebook and Instagram at John Neral Coaching. And also, please check out my book on Amazon, which is called Show Up: 6 Strategies to Lead a More Energetic and Impactful Career. And get a chance to dig in a little bit more with how I choose to define what showing up looks like and the 6 strategies I coach my clients on.
Excellent. Thank you, John. And was hoping to get a little bit more into that Show Up book today. So glad you plugged that there. And if you haven't had a chance, definitely take advantage of John's book. It's an excellent book. And you know, again, I appreciate, John, if you could leave us with one last piece of advice, what would you leave us with?
Yep. So there is somebody whom you've been wanting to and need to have a conversation with. And if you imagine 2 chairs sitting there and you're in one of them, who's the person that you want to sit next to you to have the conversation with, whether it's for professional reasons or personal reasons? Have the intentional conversation to move that relationship forward, and do it now rather than regretting you missed the opportunity later.
That's excellent, man. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that advice.
Thanks, Donnie. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
yep.
Have a good one.
I appreciate you. Take care.